In this video, I will show you my entire workflow on making this 3D environment. From the first sketch to the final render, you will see it all, sharing my thoughts and hurdles along the way. And you can get these 6 materials and all the assets used in this video for free. More on that later. My name is Felipe Grebogi and I'm the 2D and 3D concept artist, and I'm going to share my process with you today. So without further ado, the first part of my process is gathering reference. Gathering reference for me is always a struggle. Not in the sense that it's hard to do, but I spend way too much time doing so. I spend countless hours searching for the perfect picture or perfect artist for reference, and even after all that scrolling and wasting time, the same thing happens. A day go by and I haven't touched my pen to do something. Well, at least that was me some time ago. Now I have a secret that applies to my workflow. And the secret is pretty simple. It's making a list. I like to make a list with all the things that I can imagine that I will include in my art. For example, this time in an art related to witches, the first thing that comes to my mind is to have a cauldron or a flying broom. Those were the first ones in my list. And I also included some other things from a swamp, for example, like some boats, some trees, lily pads. Anyway, now after making the list, I go to search for a reference. And doing this way, I'm way more efficient. I spend way less time doing mindless research. And after gathering the reference that I need, I go to the next phase, that is sketching. Sketching is the part where I have the most fun in my projects. Doing some doodles and just having a good time is generally what gives me a better result, whether I'm doing this digitally or in my sketchbook. In this phase of the workflow, it's important to keep in mind some things of the following. Does the style fit what I need? Are the designs clear? Do they have a function? In this case, will the designs be feasible in a 3D modeling software? And of course, I try to keep all the art fundamentals in mind. After creating some designs and having a rough idea on how the majority of the props and elements will look like, I go to the next step of the process, that is the 3D modeling. Even though I've been using Blender for some time already, this time I tried a different workflow. For this project, I used the subdivision modifier workflow, which ended up being pretty fast for me at least. The only downside that I found about this method is that your poly count can get out of hand pretty quickly, especially if you drag that god-forsaken slider a little bit too much. If you have any tips on this type of workflow in Blender, I would love to know. When I'm done with the modeling, I go to the next part of the workflow, that is making the materials and textures. In fact, why don't you go over my Gumroad and get all these 6 materials and all the assets that I use in this project for free? Actually, it's not free. You have to pay the fee of 1 like and 1 subscribe. The link to my Gumroad is in the description. Now for the stuff that matters. For the majority of assets in this project, I made a pretty simple materials, generally making the roughness equals to 1 and the specularity 0. This gives the materials that soft clay look, which was what I was aiming for this project. In contrast, some of the materials are made using the node systems in the shading tab. For this project, I made 5 materials that uses the node system. 3 different kinds of wood, a brick wall, and a stylized rock. After applying these materials for all the assets, I move to the next step. And the next step is composing the scene. Now, with all the assets ready for use, I start building the environment, trying to keep an organic feeling, which for me is pretty challenging to do. Despite this, I try to put myself in the world that I'm creating. Let's say I'm one of those witches. I will go back home from a swamp haul, land the boat on the deck, get out, grab all the things from the boat, put it right on the containers. That was kind of a dumb example, but you get the idea. I have to envision how the people in that world would use it. And sometimes I forget to do this, and I think that the words that come out without doing this kind of thinking, they lack some kind of life. And whenever I'm happy with the word that I've assembled, I try to find a camera angle that sells the emotions or the feelings that I'm trying to convey through that art. And once I have that camera angle chosen, I press the render button and go to the final step. And the final step for me is to bring the picture to Photoshop and try to give it more a traditional feeling, which most of the times brings more life to the image. I break some edges, add some filters, adjust the composition, and voila, the final image is done. What do you think about the process in the end result? I would love to know your thoughts. If you have any criticism about the art or the video, please let me know in the comments. And remember to grab your freebies in the way out. That's all for me, bye bye.